You know, when top analysts want to really see how healthy a company is, they have this one go-to metric. It's not about profits, it's not about growth, it's about something way more fundamental. How fast a business can turn its investments back into actual cash. Today, we are breaking down that exact metric, the cash conversion cycle.
So to get our heads around this, we have to start with a really basic question. Where is a company's cash? I mean, the obvious answer is in the bank, right? But that's just a tiny piece of the puzzle. A huge amount of cash is always in motion. It's locked up in products sitting in a warehouse, or it's tied up in invoices customers haven't paid yet. It's literally hiding in plain sight, right inside the company's day-to-day operations. And our job is to figure out how to find it, measure it, and manage it.
And the map we use to find that cash is the Cash Conversion Cycle, or CCC. Put simply, it measures the exact number of days it takes for a dollar that you invest in the business, say by buying inventory, to make its way all the way back into your bank account as cash. It's the life cycle of money in a company. And the shorter that cycle is, well, the healthier the company.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about why the CC is the ultimate efficiency metric. Then, we'll deconstruct it into its three core pieces. We'll do a deep dive into each one, how you master your inventory, how you get paid faster, and how you can actually optimize your payments. And then, finally, we'll see how it all comes together in the real world to show who's winning and who's losing.
Okay, so why does this one number matter so much? Well, because the cash conversion cycle just cuts through all the accounting noise. It's a direct, unfiltered look at how well management is running the actual business. The buying, the selling, the collecting. You see, a company can have fantastic sales numbers, but if all its cash is stuck in dusty warehouses or uncollected invoices, it's heading for some serious trouble.
And this quote right here just nails it. The goal is always a shorter or lower CCC. A small number means the company needs less cash to keep the lights on. It's turning its investments into real money at lightning speed, which means it can reinvest that cash to grow even faster. In this game, speed is absolutely everything.
So if we want to improve the cash cycle, we first need to take it apart. We're going to deconstruct it into its three fundamental levers. These are the core drivers that management can literally pull to change a company's cash flow.
And here it is, the core formula. Looks simple, right? The cash conversion cycle is just DIO plus DSO minus DPO. Now, these aren't just random letters. They represent the three critical stages of a company's cash flow: days inventory outstanding, days sales outstanding, and days payable outstanding. So let's double-click into each one.
But before we get bogged down in the math, let's just trace the journey of a single dollar through the business. It's actually a really logical story. First, the company spends cash to buy or make inventory. That period of time is our DIO. Second, it sells that inventory and then it waits. It waits to get paid by the customer. That's the DSO. And all the while, there's this third clock running: how long the company holds on to its own cash before paying its suppliers. That's DPO. The formula is just a way of modeling this very real journey. So let's start with that first lever, inventory. This is all about the physical stuff, the raw materials, the parts, the finished goods on the shelf. This number tells us exactly how good a company is at turning its stock into sales. Days Inventory Outstanding, or DIO, tells us just that. On average, how many days does a product sit on the shelf before it's sold? For those of you who want to run the numbers, you generally take your average inventory, divided by the cost of goods sold, and then multiply by 365. But the concept is simple. It's the time from when you get it to when you sell it.
And this is where you see a huge strategic difference. On the left, a low DIO is what you want. It means products are just flying off the shelves, which signals strong demand and really sharp inventory management. On the other side, a high DIO is a massive red flag. It means your cash is literally collecting dust in a warehouse. And every single day an item sits there unsold, it's not just tying up cash, it's getting older, maybe even becoming worthless. That's a huge drag on your cash cycle.
Okay, so you sold your inventory. Great. But here's the thing. A sale isn't really a sale until the cash is in your bank account. And that brings us to our second lever, accounts receivable. This is all about how fast you can collect the money you're owed. Days Sales Outstanding, or DSO, measures this time lag. You calculate it by taking your accounts receivable, dividing by your total credit sales, and multiplying by 365. Basically, if you sell things on credit, your DSO is the average number of days your customers take to finally pay you.
The takeaway here is pretty straightforward. A lower DSO is better. It means your collections are efficient, customers are paying you quickly, and that directly boosts your cash position. A high DSO, though, that's a problem.
It means your sales are just a bunch of IOUs. You're basically acting as a bank for your customers, funding their operations instead of your own. You've made the sale, but you've got nothing to show for it yet.
And now we get to our third and final lever. And this is where the logic kind of flips on its head. So far, we've talked about doing things faster, sell inventory fast, collect cash fast. Now we're going to talk about the strategic benefit of slowing something down, paying your own bills. This is Days Payable Outstanding, or DPO. It measures, on average, how many days your company takes to pay its suppliers. To calculate it, you take your average accounts payable, divided by the cost of goods sold, and multiply by 365. It shows how long you get to hold on to your cash before it has to go out the door.
This is such a critical insight. Unlike the other two, with DPO, a higher number is actually better. A high DPO means you are strategically using your supplier's money. It's basically a short-term, interest-free loan to fund your own business. That's exactly why DPO is subtracted in the formula. Now, there is a catch. You can't push this too far or you'll start damaging relationships with your suppliers. So it's a delicate balancing act.
All right, so we've deconstructed the theory. We've looked at all three levers. Now let's put it all back together and see how this plays out in the real world. Because a company's business model is probably the single biggest driver of its cash conversion cycle.
This table just illustrates the point perfectly. Take a classic retailer like Walmart. They have a positive CCC because they have to buy the inventory, hold it on their shelves, and then sell it. But then you look at a giant like Amazon, and they have a famously negative CCC. How? Well, they collect your cash the second you click buy, but they use their massive leverage to pay their suppliers much later. And then you've got software companies where there's no physical inventory, so the classic formula doesn't quite fit, though you can bet they're still watching their DSO and DPO like hawks.
And this brings us to the absolute holy grail of operational efficiency, a negative cash conversion cycle. A number like negative 30 days means a company gets paid by its customers a full month before it has to pay its own suppliers. Let that sink in. The company is literally funding its own growth with other people's money. It is a cash-generating machine. That is what peak operational excellence looks like.
So how do you actually apply this? Well, think of it as a diagnostic tool. Here are the exact questions a top analyst would ask. First, what's the trend? Is the company's cycle getting shorter or longer over time? Second, how do they stack up against the competition? A 20-day cycle might be amazing for one industry and terrible for another. Third, what's the root cause? If the number is changing, which of the three levers is actually moving the needle? And finally, just a quick sanity check. Does the number make sense for the kind of business they're in?
And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway. The phrase operational efficiency can feel kind of fuzzy, right? A little abstract. What the cash conversion cycle does is make it real. It turns that vague concept into a single hard number. A number you can calculate, you can benchmark, you can track over time, and most importantly, you can actively manage and improve. Let's end on why this is so critical for investors. Imagine you have two companies that are otherwise identical. An investor will almost always value the one with the lower CCC more. Why? Because it proves they are more efficient with their capital. They can generate the same returns, but they can do it faster, and that makes for a healthier and ultimately a more valuable business.
You know, we always hear that old saying, cash is king. Well, if that's true, then maybe the cash conversion cycle is the king's crown. It's the true measure of that king's power. It doesn't just tell you how much cash a company has, but how quickly and how efficiently it can command it. Definitely something to think about the next time you're looking at any business.